NEDLAC, having distinguished itself as the latest threat to law-abiding firearms owners, referred to the Firearms Control Bill 2025, called a meeting on the 4th of December to which it invited several interest groups representing the broader firearms community in South Africa. I'm speaking today to Hubert Wenzel. Hubert is the chairman of the National Arms and Ammunition Collectors Confederation of South Africa, and he represented in that capacity, so he was present at the meeting, and as such he's able to supply us with probably the most up-to-date info on what transpired during that meeting as possible. Hubert, hello and welcome.
Thank you, Riaan. Yes, maybe I must just start by saying that NEDLAC didn't invite us because they wanted to. They invited us and the broader firearm fraternity based on a public outcry due to the whole secretive nature in which the whole negotiations and discussions happened between them and the Civilian Secretary of Police. So it was sort of out of duress that they invited, and they didn't invite a representative audience in any event. It was very skewed, and not everyone was represented.
Well, on that point, can you maybe walk us through to, or give us an idea of who was indeed present at that meeting, and what the stated purpose of the meeting was, other than having caved into public pressure and outrage?
Yeah. So the invitee list just grew and grew and grew, and people and organizations got themselves onto the list based on by demanding to be heard. Some organizations declined to attend simply due to the fact that they didn't believe that the process had any credence and any substance. We elected to attend simply on the basis of needing to be there and understanding where the process was. On the invitee list, there must have been in excess of 200 names, individual names, a lot of them representing organizations, a lot of them Gmail addresses, so no one knows who they're representing and where they were from. There were some 40 people in physical attendance with another 60 odd online, based on what I've observed. Organizations present were NEDLAC themselves. They occupied about half the room. The CFR, i.e. SAPS, the Civilian Secretary of Police, Institute of Security Studies, PSIRO was there, COSATU was there, POPCRU was there, BUSA was there, NACTU, SAFTU, GFSA, and SARA, South African Heritage Resources Agency. Then there were a couple of weird ones, one of which that stood out was the Coded Ammunition, which is a commercial entity, a little bit more about that later. And then the pro-firearms organizations were the likes of SA Hunters, the South African Dealers Association, CHASA, FASA, the Professional Hunters, Northwest Organized Agriculture, ourselves as NACSA, SAGA, GOZA, and the likes. But they weren't all fully represented, and NEDLAC represented the so-called social partners. And a number of them did not attend. Well, a number of them attended but did not contribute. And interestingly enough, there were quite a number of academics present, were the likes of UCT, UNISA, and WITS were also on the invitee list, but they didn't actually contribute in any of the discussions.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So from your perspective, what were the key items on the agenda regarding specifically the Firearms Control Bill of 2025? And what stood out to you as the most significant proposal so far?
So the presented aim of was to brief the audience, i.e. the people that made the list, on the intent of the bill, the homework and the consultation that they allegedly had conducted leading up to the bill. And it was meant to be followed up by a plenary session on the day, broken into 4 different sessions whereby various organizations could then participate in further discussion around the process. That, however, did not happen. We violently objected to the fact that this thing is being rushed and that it's being sugar-coated as a consultative process, which is not the case at all. Sorry, there's a cat here. So the plenary session did not happen, but we ended up in a more detailed discussion around what was presented to us as research, which turned out to be totally unfounded. A lot of the research was mere hearsay and some weird documents that was just regurgitated. What became blatantly apparent was that it was not a new amendment bill. It was, in fact, the 2021 draft amendment bill that was so vehemently objected that was just reworked and being retabled. And to all of our frustration, the objections and the recommendations made against that bill was not considered.
At all.
They merely did their own thing.
Okay, that sends a clear enough message in itself.
Indeed.
How would you describe the tone and the attitude in the room? Was there, well, it clearly wasn't consultative in nature, or, did you get the impression more that government was simply informing all the role players of stuff that they've already decided on?
Yeah, the meeting started very courteous, and I must commend NEDLAC for maintaining a professional conference, if you like, or a meeting, because it got heated at some point. But given the factless basis of these proposed amendments, we were drawn to become very suspicious of their true intent. It is clear that there's a mandate to reduce firearm ownership in civilian hands. The CSOP said so in so many words. There's this belief that it is of national concern that there are firearms in private hands. They said it in so many words. And they had a mandate to curb, in their words, proliferation of firearms, which of course is totally factless, because they trying to legislate further those 50-odd% of us that do have licensed firearms. I mean, there's known studies that show that in excess of 50% of the firearms in circulation in South Africa are unlicensed due to the porous borders, due to theft and and losses from the government and the various organs of state, and from these arsenals that came from the so-called apartheid era that were handed down and given to the likes of MK, etc., etc. So it's totally policing the wrong thing. And there's no evidence suggesting what they're trying to fix with these amendments in terms of the actual problem.
How far along do you think this bill is at this stage, really is? And what do you think the next realistic steps and timelines look like from here?
Yeah, so firstly, it's not official yet. Nothing has been gazetted. So again, it was a document that leaked. It is official, but in the sense that it exists. We've confirmed that it's a reworked version of the 2021 version, as opposed to new amendments being tabled. But it's definitely farther along than that the general public considered. They've certainly lobbied on the other side of the fence extensively, and is now being perpetrated as a bit of a consultative process, which it's not. Yeah, so it's definitely progressed.
Were there any representatives in attendance who expressed really strong opposition or support for this bill? Are there any arguments that stood out for you during these exchanges?
Yeah, so there's obviously two sides to the fence. So only GFSA and the commercial entity, this coded ammunition crowd, they were shouting for this bill to become even more constrained. The Civilian Security Police had a clear mandate to reduce the so-called proliferation of firearms. None of them had contributions to make regarding curbing unlawful or unlicensed firearms, though. The firearm fraternity was not fully presented by virtue of the number of stakeholders presented. There was one concerned mother in the form of the murdered Sasha Lee Davids' mother that made a presentation and a plea, and it focused around basically holding the SAPs accountable for their dereliction of duty. In this specific case, SAPS neglected to remove the firearm from a murderer after no less than 3 reported incidents against the convicted murderer, including a restraint order from the court that the police never issued, and they never collected the firearm from the perpetrator. So that's very concerning. All the
Yes.
pro-firearm lobby groups oppose the bill in its entirety because of the fact that it's baseless. There was no empirical evidence or research or facts that could support it. And it's furthermore devoid of any measure to curb leakage, theft, sale of firearms from the various organs of state. So again, it's targeting the wrong audience.
Well, it is kind of interesting that at this very meeting, where this proposed bill was supposed to be discussed in a bit more detail, there was a mum of a child that got murdered who was basically accusing the police of not doing their job, which is the whole point, and something that was very specifically pointed out in that report. I think it was 2015, that report
By WITS,
by WITS,
School of Governance.
the School of Governance, which stated so clearly that the problem isn't lawful, law-abiding firearm owners. The problem is the fact that SAPS is, well, I mean, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? And
absolutely, and we drove that point clear because in they allegedly had research, and we challenged them, where's this research? To please share this research, to the point where we've even submitted a PIA application to gain access to this information that they based this new amendments on. And when we as a collective, Martin Hood still challenged them, when we then challenged them, why was the Civilian Secretariat of Police's own commissioned research, i.e. this School of Governance report, not used? And they conveniently ignored it because the report does not beat the drum of their little agenda.
Yes.
The report is quite damning in the fact that in 15 years of evidence since for the span of the research that was conducted, there was no evidence that suggests that the FCA is effective in combating firearm-related crime. In fact, it all pointed the finger straight back to the inability of the police to actually enforce it properly. So the issue is not about legislation, the issue is about enforcement.
And they completely ignored that. That is interesting. No, I mean, that says a lot about what really is going on here.
There's a clear ideology.
Yeah. Absolutely. Based on what you saw in that room, are you feeling more optimistic or more concerned? And what should gun owners realistically be preparing themselves for over the next, say, 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. A little bit of both. Definitely more concerned about how far progressed this process is without proper consultation. And then positive in the other sense that it was evident through the parties that did attend in terms of the pro-firearm community is that we are far better prepared with fact-based arguments than the CSOP were. In terms of what we need to do, we definitely cannot rest on our laurels. Get involved, join your lobby group, join and write letters and lobby your political parties. Interestingly, none of the political parties were invited. They weren't presented. So from a legislative perspective, you would think that the government of national unity would be involved. None of them were there. So the thing is very one-sided and clearly not representative at all.
Well, to end this, I just want to recap on what you just said. What people need to be doing right now, because as you said, it's still not been gazetted. So at this point in time, is there any real purpose in completing online petitions before this whole thing gets gazetted?
Absolutely. You will remember in the 2021, when that version was tabled, the communities got together and a number of these petitions were launched. If statistics, if I remember correctly, we submitted no less than 118,000 petitions in one of the surveys. Yes. So there was a massive public outcry. And now, interestingly, the Civilian Secretariat of Police claimed that those were the petitions received, but they neglect to state how many were objections and how many were pro. I think 97% of those were objections, as opposed to support of the bill. We reminded them again of that round of statistics, and I think we need to again lobby And it will definitely help if we sign any and all petitions possible, because we have to fight them with volumes of these objections. Flood the emails, flood the petitions. So the previous round, you could actually lodge your objection directly to the Civilian Secretary of Police, and we need to do the same. It needs to be known that the public will not stand for this, and that they have not considered the broader community and the public outcry. What was also made blatantly clear was, if it was in the state where the police is at the moment with regards to the inability to curb crime, now you want to take away the force equalizer, because there's no better force equalizer in a violent situation like that than a firearm. We cannot wait for the police. We cannot wait for private security to come and rescue you. We need to be self-prepared, and therefore we need to be mobilized.
Yeah, I mean, one can have a separate discussion about this in itself, but it is so in your face that at the same time that the president has basically declared gender-based violence a national emergency, while they're doing that, they are at the same time seriously busy trying to remove the best potential equalizer that in this case specifically a female can have.
Correct. And there's this irrational belief that there's this irrational belief that firearms in the hands of the private citizens is now a state concern, a state security concern. Well, if it wasn't for the firearms in the private hands, the 2021 public riots would not have turned out the way they were. Yep. It probably would have been 10 times worse. Because the police were totally incapable of dealing with the situation if it wasn't for the public that stood firm and stood their ground. Now, and that whole argument seems to just be ignored and not being interpreted because of this belief that firearms in the hands of private citizens are bad, and therefore it's a state security concern and it must be banned. That's their standpoint.
Well, I mean, they're even trying to incorporate security companies. There are so many more armed security officers in this country than police officers, and it is that way for a very specific reason. That industry would never have grown that big if there wasn't an absolute demand for it.
Indeed,
from its customers. So if you are a firearms owner, or even if you are not a firearms owner, this thing will affect you in any case, because if it doesn't affect your own firearms, it is going to affect the firearms used by the very security companies who are protecting you and your loved ones. So
exactly.
The very last thing we must do is sit back and wait for this to happen. I'm going to reiterate.
I mean, correct. And I mean, we were just touching on the one side in terms of ownership and where this thing is going, but the macroeconomic impact is huge. Absolutely. I mean, we haven't even touched on what it does for the organized hunting industry, what it's done for agriculture, what private security. That industry is massive.
And the sports shooting fraternity.
Correct. Yeah. So it's and that's why as a fraternity as a whole, we all stand together, and that's why the United Firearms Forum was mobilized again, is to bring all the relevant parties together in a common voice.
And we have to stand together as one for this fight. We've won it the previous time. We can do so again, but it's not going to happen if we sit and wait for others to do what needs to be done. So you've heard now, whether you're a firearms owner in whatever capacity or not, or whether you just use private security to look after your best interests, get off your backside. Make sure you spread videos like this far and wide so that as many people as possible can start taking cognizance of the fact that there is a definite drive going on of disarmament, which is going to have a very, very bad effect on not only our safety, but the industry as a whole. It's not as if we can afford job losses with the economy being what it is. Get on the cases of your political parties and representatives. ministers, your people belonging to your own political party, do join firearm organizations like SAGA, GOSA, etc. There are quite a few. Make sure that you're involved with that. Ask them what they're doing. Ask them what's going on. Keep yourself updated. And make certain that you are aware of petitions going online. I mean, there are already petitions running. Go sign them. It takes a couple of minutes of your time. And once this thing gets to the point where it gets gazetted, there will be more. Sign them. Do your part. Do not just sit back. That's how we lose the fight. We need all the support we can get, and we need you to help make everybody aware of what's going on. Hubert, that's it from me, unless you've got something to add.
All good. No, thank you very much, and thank you for the interview.
And just for the viewers, as always, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please smash that bell icon so that you get notifications of all our new videos coming out. And as always, there is a link in the description below to the Lone Operator training if you're interested in training. Check it out. We look forward to seeing you on a range one of these days.